Are you an employee or an employer? Whichever it may be, labour law has both pitfalls and protections for you. In the series of talks, Michael Bagram will be talking about all aspects of the law as it affects workers and the people who employ them, from small businesses to temporary and casual labour and the whole gamut in between. Michael, what protections are there for the employer and what pitfalls are there?
I'm going to be speaking about both the protections, pitfalls and rights that employees have. We at Bagram's Attorneys do the entire gamut of the labour legislation. What we've also done is we do represent small businesses and of course large businesses, but with small businesses we specially registered at employers' organisation, which is like a trade union for employers. We call it the Small Business Employers Organisation. And in that particular organisation, the clients, the small businesses, join the organisation for a small fee, and then we organise attorneys who are organisers of that organisation to represent them and to represent the full gamut of the Labour Relations Act. What happens there with the Small Business Employers Organisation is that we can go to the CCMA, which is the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, or we can go to the bargaining councils. Any labour dispute, we would represent that small business. That's anyone who employs less than 300 employees. We would then represent that small business at that particular arbitration or conciliation or mediation or whatever that might be. And you'll find that small businesses often need that protection, that help, and at a much cheaper rate than they would normally get at their normal attorneys. And that rate would entitle them to employment contracts, relationships, everything that goes with employment law would entitle them to it. What it also means is that they would be able to make phone calls to the Small Business Employers Organisation, and they would be entitled to get those phone calls free of charge. Obviously, once they are members of the Small Business Employers Organisation, they can get that organisation via our attorneys firm, Bagram's Attorneys, or they can get hold of Cape Labour and Industrial Consultants. You will see that we also have seminars from time to time. If you're a member of the Small Business Employers Organisation, we let you come to those seminars at no cost. And we have booklets. We produce little booklets. Obviously, you know about the one that we have for domestic workers. We have one handling labour laws, the general overview of labour laws. And those booklets, once again, are the entitlement of members of the Small Business Employers Organisation. The legislation itself is quite complex, and so employers need to understand that they are facing probably 11 pieces of labour legislation. The most important being, of course, the Labour Relations Act of 1995, which sets up the CCMA and the bargaining councils. But then you have also the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which is the basis of all labour legislation. That basis, you can't go underneath the basis, and that sets out things like maternity leave, leave pay, sick leave, pay slips, etc. So that we very carefully handle those two pieces of legislation. But then you have all the quasi-legislation, including the interaction with trade unions.
It is a very complex situation. It's something that employers generally don't have the time or the ability to fully understand. What are some of the problems that have been brought to your organisation?
Well, obviously, many of the problems, they start right from the inception of the business. In other words, they need to have proper letters of appointment. Now, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act tells you that you have to have a letter of appointment or a contract of employment. And right from that inception, we then handle that. Even the advertising, for instance. If you put an advert, for instance, in a countrywide newspaper asking for staff, an applicant for a job qualifies as an employee in terms of the legislation. And if you turn me down, for instance, you say, no, Michael, I don't want you as an employee, you're too fat. That's discriminatory. I will then go to the CCMA with a discriminatory charge. And the bottom line is that I could go to the CCMA in the town in which I reside. So let's say I'm in Pofadder. I will then go to the CCMA in Pofadder and complain that Leslie has put an advert in the Sunday Times, for instance, and he hasn't taken me because I'm too fat. You will then have to go there to go and defend it. So we step in immediately. And we say, we will help you even at that point with the advertising. We will help you with that. So before you appoint someone, we help you with the paperwork, we help you with the law, and we help you actually appoint that person. Then it takes it to the next step. Do you have conditions of service? Conditions of service, for instance, do you have codes of conduct? Do you say that people have to come in at 8 o'clock? What happens if they don't come in at 8 o'clock? How do you set up disciplinary hearings? How do you have notifications for those disciplinary hearings? Where do you go from there? Smoking policies, maternity policies, HIV policies, all those policies we put together for the businesses.
Well, it all sounds a wonderful world, but a difficult one and a tricky one for an employer. Could be tripped on all manner of things. Next week we'll be talking about the definition of employees, temporary and casual, acting employees, probationary time and so forth. So join us again when Michael Bagraham of Bagraham's Attorneys talks to us on Talking Point.